I think we'll probably make a start. Good morning again, everyone. It's great to see so many of you have joined us this morning, and we're looking forward to getting stuck into today's Mastering Escapable Water Claims webinar. So, as I'm sure you can see on the slide in front of you, I'm hoping it's all about cutting edge approaches, tools, and technology to prevent, reduce, and mitigate the impact. So I will just do a quick introduction of myself before handing over to our presenters today. I'm Noel Dowds. I'm the distribution consultant here at Zurich UK, and we're delighted to be putting this webinar on this morning for you all. And I'll just run through a very brief bit of housekeeping. The call is being recorded, so you will have access to that once we upload the link to YouTube, and we'll send it round alongside a feedback form afterwards. So keep your eyes watching for that one. If you have any questions today, please do ping them either into the chat or the Q&A, and we will try and pick through as many of these as we can at the end. So I will now quickly do a very brief introduction of our speakers. We have Andrew Patterson, Paul Vincent, Paul Gallagher, Kamlesh Nahar, and Andrew Jones joining us. And Andy, if it's all right, I will hand over to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Noel. Yeah, good to meet everyone. I've probably been on a couple of sessions before where a few of you have been on, but if I haven't spoken to you, so my role is head of business development on the risk engineering side for Zurich Resilient Solutions. Just before we actually cover the kind of main topic on escape of water, I just wanted to reiterate who Zurich Resilient Solutions are, who ZRS are. The beauty for ZRS, obviously we're still part of Zurich, but I thought it was important for you just to see some of the figures and breadth of the services that we actually offer. So you can see on there the number of actual risk assessments we do and actual risk improvement actions. So the whole premise of ZRS, as it says there, is for us to work with yourselves and help your clients. We are very much there to identify, to research, to assess, and most importantly, to reduce risk and obviously if risk happens to mitigate the impact of that risk. So I just wanted to start this session just as a reminder when Paul Vincent's talking about who ZRS are as an overall. We are very much there to help you, to help your clients. The services that we offer, of which we're going to talk about escape of water today, we are really want to help your customer. In turn, that takes some of the burden away from you. And obviously, if we can provide a good service for you to your customer, that's going to help you with retention. So I said, have a good look at these figures. This is how we are there to support you. If you've been on any sessions with me before, you'll see that some of the key services that we offer. So as I mentioned, we're going to talk about the bottom right in a second about escape of water. Just don't forget, we can support you. Obviously on the risk engineering side with actual risk assessment programs. That's something that I get personally asked about a lot. Building valuations, if we can help you in the future. If you've got clients that need a building valuation, again, please come to me directly. And the final part, we do have a building energy management system. So there's a good crossover with escape of water because it will help mitigate that risk. So yeah, if we can help you in any way, please do reach out to me going forward. So today, the focus of our session today. So when we did the session with yourselves end of last year, we had quite a few claims questions. So I'm gonna hand over in a second to Paul Gallagher and Kamlesh, who are going to focus on the impact of claims on escape of water. We are then going to hand over. There's a few Pauls and Andrews. We're then going to hand over to the other Paul to focus on obviously the impact of escape of water. Paul will then carry on and talk about actual ways to stop and mitigate some of the risks, how we can prevent it. And then finally, we'll hand over to Andrew Jones from Aqualeak, who is going to go through specifically how they can help with some leak detection technologies. We will do the Q&A, as Noel said. If you've got any questions, obviously put them in the chat. But yeah, either through Paul, Andrew, or Kamlesh and Paul Gallagher, we should be able to answer any claims questions you have as well. Paul, over to you.
Thank you, Andrew, and good morning, everybody. So what I'd like to do today is just to take you through some claim types, some of the issues we're seeing with escapes of water, and alternatively, how to manage them best. So escape of water, as you can see from the slide here, I'm not going to run through every scenario, but escape of water is the largest type of claim and accounts for 1 in 3 of all insurance claims made in the UK. And the impact of these claims are financially very high and continue to reach new heights year on year. Escape of water claims are often arise from unexpected issues, water leaks being the main one, burst pipes, in particular in the winter with freeze, thaw scenario. Faulty electrical appliances is another common theme that we do see. One of the main areas I wanted to point out in this slide is with regards to unoccupied buildings. Essentially, a lot of policies do have clauses within them, and if properties are unoccupied for extended periods of time, you do need to let underwriters know, or there potentially is clauses with regards to switching the water off at properties just to ensure claims are not voided or potentially repudiated on that clause. But these are the general types of escape of water claims we do see, and it will, as I say, the slides will be shared later so you can see more examples, but I'm not going to take you through each and every slide. In the next slide, there are just some pictures with regards to the examples shown previously, but there is a lot of common themes with regards to just the general escape of water pipes from burst pipes, potential DIY issues where people are drilling through pipes, and then the faulty appliances. One of the main issues we are seeing with escape of water claims at present is the increased claim spend, in particular in relation to alternative accommodation costs. This is due to the increase in tourism and events returning to pre-pandemic levels. The increase in government demand for alternative accommodation, just with the Immigration and Asylum Act of 1999, the government are required to provide alternative accommodation to destitute asylum seekers. Landlords removing themselves from the market with regards to insurance claims, the hotel costs increasing, and council spending on hotels, so council placing homeless people within hotels, and this then drives up the cost for the insurance market, placing our customers in alternative accommodation. Another impact on the alternative accommodation is the extended repair schedules, and this is due to supply chain issues that we do see, just due to what's going on in other areas of the world. This does have an impact on the UK. With regards to getting materials into the market. Labour shortages in general, skilled workers are becoming few and far between, and it is getting harder and harder to get that skilled market. There is budget inaccuracies with reports changing in orders, permits and approval from councils, and also subcontractor issues. And we do see equipment breakdown on sites, etc., which do extend these repair costs. All this in tow does have a major disruption to our customers being placed out of their property. No one wants to be placed out of their property with regards to an insurance claim, and it does have a big impact on our customers. One of the other challenges we do see with regards to escape of waters is our customers not actually knowing where their stopcock is with regards to shutting off the water supply. So it is generally a good thing for our customers to understand where that is. And then moving on to how do we manage an escape of water. So essentially, when an escape of water occurs, we want to stop the supply as quickly as possible, potentially drain down the system with regards to drain down the system to get any excess water, out of the pipes, etc., that are leaking. We will expect our customers to take photos and videos of any potential damage, get detailed lists, contact the insurer ourselves as quickly as possible, and notify us of the claim. Provide details of documentation they've collected, potential quotes, etc. Begin potentially water removal and pump out any standing water in the properties. And if possible, install dehumidifiers. These are the quickest things we can do to prevent elongated damage and reduce the need for potential customers to be outside the property. But what I'll do just now is I'll just hand over to Kamlesh, who will just take you through some brief examples of where an escape of water has occurred.
Hi everyone. So today I'll discuss two case studies regarding escape of water claims. So the first case study is an escape of water claim which was caused by a burst pipe in the loft due to very low temperatures. So the claim was reported by the insured, who was owners of the property, and they were alerted by the neighbours the fire alarm was activated. The insured attended and discovered water was noted to be running through the ground floor ceilings. You can see from the images the extent of damage that's been caused to the property, which is pretty significant. So the property is tenanted, and the damage that's been sustained to the property is the walls, the ceilings, floors, windows and doors. Some of the timber doors have been swollen, so they may need to be replaced, and then rewiring also needs to be replaced as well. So the property is tenanted and is no longer habitable, and the insured will be claiming loss of rent because they're the landlord. There's no concerns regarding the coverage on this one, and a loss adjuster has been appointed. So the loss adjusters requested estimates from the insured for the reinstatement costs, and all the costs have been agreed with the loss adjuster. So the next steps for the loss adjuster are they'll be working closely with the insured to ensure the work's completed within the timescales, and then they'll notify Zurich of any developments and if any payments are to be raised. So time is of the essence in this matter because we don't want the loss of rent claim to escalate. Okay, so case study number 2. So this claim is an escape of water from a washing machine. Again, the landlord reported the water ingress through the ceiling, which was subsequently communicated to the landlord by the tenants. So on this case, a contractor was appointed, and they identified the leak was coming from a water pipe connected to a washing machine in the flat above. The damage impacted 2 bedrooms and the hallway. As you can see from the damage, again, there's quite a significant amount of damage to the property. Landlord is again claiming loss of rents due to the tenants vacating the property, and there's no concerns regarding the coverage. So the loss adjuster is appointed, contractor costs have been agreed, and the reinstatement works have begun on the property. So we've been paying loss of rent to the landlord and just awaiting the final cost to settle the claim. I'll now pass you over to Paul Vincent.
Hi everyone. Yeah, so morning. Paul Vincent, risk engineer and escape of water for ZRS. So let me just move the slides along to me. That's it. So yeah, thanks Kamlesh. I thought what I'd do is first off talking about those case studies there, just put some of that in context and just sort of go through some of the volumes of water that are involved in escape of water incidents. So quite regularly they run at 60 litres a minute, and the thing is with 60 litres a minute, that doesn't really mean a lot to anyone. So I thought I'd sort of put some context around that. So if that was to run for a day, just like a nice easy round period, it's equivalent to 152,000 pints of beer going through a property, or 1,700 tanks of fuel at a cost of 128,000, just to sort of sort of give you some sort of context there. So if it runs for say 6 hours, you can sort of think of how many pints that would be. So you're talking serious amounts of water going in. Bit more of sort of importance, bit of a wider issue with sort of all escape of water, and something that's interesting to me coming from a water industry background. There's a sustainability aspect to that, and so I'll just put in there sort of that over one day, 60 litres a minute, is equivalent to 665 people's worth of water, so people days. So if that was run for 10 days, you're getting into sort of like a small market town, and that's potable water, so it's treated, and there's a lot of time and effort goes into that. And certainly with the sort of dry period we've had, it's all been over the news. It's been the driest spring. Northwest is now in drought conditions. They've brought forward 2 new reservoirs. I knew about these. They're in my company that I used to work for. They're bringing those forward in the eastern counties where it's particularly dry. There's a real issue with water resources, not across every part of the country, but certainly in the eastern counties. The southwest hasn't got an issue at the moment. They've had plenty of rain, so it does vary. So that's one part of it that's important. The next bit is the cost of water. That is going through the roof. They have. There's always been a thing in the industry, the water industry, that it's just too cheap, and they want to bring it in line with energy, and they are starting to set that out. There's 2 reasons for that. First of all, we've got to pay for the infrastructure changes, and that's the customer that has to do that in a privatised industry. That's how that sort of works. But also they want to incentivise change, people's behaviour, not just to be more efficient, but to really monitor what they're doing on their own networks, whether that be a small property right through to a big residential block or industrial site. So I'll just put some sort of figures down there. Costs change for everybody 1st of April. Commercial market are in a separate setup to domestic customers. They are in a commercial market with retailers. But for domestic customers, just Thames there, it's gone up 12.5%. By 2029, 30, 45% on top of today's prices. They're looking at increasing that, and that again is just to sort of bring those 2 things, incentivisation and start bringing water in line with energy. So that's where they're going, and all of these figures come from a 22mm pipe. That's 3/4 inch, which is present in all systems across every property. That's, you know, it's a very common pipe size. So yeah, I just thought I'd just sort of go through that just to bring that into this. So what can we do about it? So prevention and reduction. I've got 4 titles there. First off, claims data. That's where you need to start from a portfolio point of view or from a customer point of view. Generally, I tend to deal with residential. So of the sort of third of claims that Zurich of all the escape of water claims that Zurich deals with, 70% are residential. Reason for that is just far more complex pipe work within a residential property or block, far more of it, far more opportunity for it to leak. You've got lack of control, because once it goes over the threshold of someone's property, that's their responsibility. It's not like an industrial site or commercial site where the property owner has visibility of the whole network. So that's water and wastewater. And so using claims data, we can then start to sort of tailor and find hotspots and problem properties. And then once you sort of then have an idea about where to start thinking and targeting, you can then sort of go on, and I've sort of called it improve on-site water knowledge. So that's either go in, and this is what I do quite regularly now, do specific on-site water assessments, so escape of water risk assessments for individual properties. And when I go in there, it's all about not just the physical side of it, but also the knowledge and what do they know about that property? Are they water wise for it? The other part of improving on-site water knowledge, we can do workshops where we can get property managers into a room, start looking at sort of what they do around escape of water management proactively, and then sort of reactively to an incident, and how efficient are they at that? Do they have a well executed plan? And if we find any gaps, we can then start to sort of suggest changes to that. So if they don't know where their stopcocks are, they go out and do a mapping exercise and record that centrally, that type of stuff. And then we can sort of work with them and sort of measure that and see that through that project. So that's sort of something we can do once it's targeted. And that then links through into sort of developing escape of water management plans. So we can do that as a standalone as well. We don't need to go through all that sort of claims thing. We can sort of just provide that as a sort of standalone project. And then we've got leak prevention solutions, which Andy Jones from AquaClean can go into. It's a developing area as sector, lots of innovation and moving forward. But Andy can cover that once we get to that. So what I'll do is I'll just start going into some of those points there. So here I've got some data. This is actual customer data, just as an illustration of something that we can look at. Just I thought I'd put this up, and this is from 2020 over the last 4 years, 2020 to 24. So when you start looking at claims data, there's sort of 4 key parameters that I've sort of identified. Obviously, the total claim cost per property, the frequency per property as well. That's important. So you can have quite a high claim, but you might only have 2, but you might have another one that's a lower claim cost, but you've got 10. The source as well is really useful. So then you can start seeing where the issues seem to be and there's any trends. And then of course the location. And you can sort of use these all to interlink to then start, as I say, pulling out hotspots and problem properties and sort of start to be a bit more targeted in how you approach it. So just as an illustration there, I've got those 2 pie charts. You've got frequency of claims and then total claims against source. And one big challenge with claims data is the quality of it. 2 main bits, source is one, but also address can be quite different. So clearly when you have lines and lines and lines on a spreadsheet of claim data, you need to sort of group it. So that can provide a problem. And as you can see on these 2 pie charts, there's other on there that's been recorded, which isn't sort of very descriptive, but you need to have that option because sometimes when claims are recorded and come in, the teams that put those into the system, they need that option because they might not know what the source is. But having said that, you can still see that for this particular data for frequency of claims, burst pipe is the big problem. So then that starts to drive you down the water side, not the wastewater, and then start thinking about how you can manage that. And I'll get into that a bit later. You've got appliances, a big one, appliances, and that's DIY. And generally it's the wastewater side. So then you can start saying, can you and water, but can you purchase appliances that have leak prevention integral? A lot do now. So that's that one. And then if you move across to total claims, burst pipes again really comes out. Others got smaller, and then water pipe starts to become a bit more of a factor, and that's your underground supply pipe, so the actual supply that comes into the property before it then enters the property and works its way around. So it's just sort of a way of being able to target. And when you come to location, what I find without fail, you can have 1,000 properties, and you look at any of these metrics that I've just said here, it's really clustered in sort of a handful almost sometimes. And so there's a very steep drop off against total cost with property along the bottom. And so what you can do is you can really target those properties with more detailed assessment, get them performing better, and that brings the whole portfolio up. I've not come across any data at the moment that I've looked at where it's sort of spread evenly, if you like. It really is clustered, and there's a real steep curve off. So that's what I've been finding. So there are sort of some real problem properties out there for a lot of customers. So one thing I thought I'd just highlight today, as I've been going out, and it's only simple stuff. This is where I like to take it, because there's not a lot of CapEx out there for customers at the moment. But there's a lot you can do that's just sort of observational, well structured, well executed. Provided you do that, you can really pick things up and be very proactive. And what I've discovered when I've been going out is the lack of knowledge, on-site property knowledge, is astounding. I mean, I've been out with a lot of property managers who just do not know where their water systems run, where they enter the property, how to turn them off, what happens after that, inspection. They just have no very, very limited knowledge, even if there's been quite a lot of escape of water incidents. So I thought I'd just go into 2 simple things about what can be done just to discover problems. So these are consumption watching and just stop taps. It's a real simple thing, but a real big one. So what consumption watching, and I've been doing this for nearly 30 years when I first started. So consumption watching is looking at meters and using those. Meters aren't just there for charging. They're also there for monitoring. And I thought I've just put one up there. So they've got 2 uses. They're not just there just to produce a bill. So I'll just put, that's your sort of average meter, your register meter. You do get digital meters these days. I can just tell you after I've gone through this. But that is your standard meter, and that's your standard setup. So that particular one is 07, as you can see from the serial number on top. So it's quite, relatively old, but they've been designed like this for a long time now. And what a consumption watch is, you use your meter to then see what's going on downstream from that. And if you watch it for only a short period of time, you can detect leaks. It's proven. It's everybody in the water industry does this in certain departments. You're told how to do it, and the meter is designed to help you with this. And so that picture there on the top left, the white dials are what you charged off. They're cubes. Those two red ones at the end there aren't chargeable, but they're units. So that's hundreds, tens, and litres. Sometimes you find 3. There's only 2 there. The litres is shown by that smaller dial at the top there, and then 0.1 of a litre below that. So the sensitivity is coming down. So if you've got a drip, they will start turning. But probably the more important one that we need to know about is the trickle meter, a trickle dial in the middle, that green one. They've all got them. They're either green or silver, and they're not related to flow. They're literally there as a visual guide, and they're super sensitive, and that's what you use. And you just go through a property looking at those. And I know it sounds obvious, but it's really, really good. And so when I go on an escape of water assessment, I do this. And I went to one with about 40 odd flats, and I found 22 of movement on that trickle dial. Everyone had a leak. And the property manager I went round with, he then started doing that on a regular basis. That was what we suggest to do it at a fixed regular basis, a consumption watch, build that into what you do as a maintenance regime. And he found quite a large leak on flat 4 as applied to the bath, just by doing this, by just watching the meter. So that's sort of consumption watching. I just thought I'd sort of go into that. And then just stop tap water management. That's the next one. As I say, the majority of assessments I've been to got really limited knowledge, and it's absolutely key to know where these are and get them documented really, really, really clearly. So I've got a large residential customer who have taken this seriously, and they're doing a full mapping exercise as we speak now, actually, of all their stopcocks, 201 properties. And that's going to be recorded centrally, because another issue, you tend to find the local guy, there's always somebody somewhere who's been there a long time, that they've got it in their head, they've got it in their head, and it's nice to get it recorded centrally. So if they leave or go on holiday, you don't lose that knowledge. And this particular mapping exercise, they're actually going to use QR codes on each of the stopcocks, label them up that way, so they can then be used to then say what they do. That's how seriously they're taking it. And what I've been through a lot of loss adjusters reports and forensic plumbing reports trying to find the source of a large incident. And without fail, in all of those, there's been a delay in shut off. Either they don't know where it is, or it's behind a locked door, was one particular one. And that's where you need to start pulling some of this stuff out. So when it does happen, you've got you know what you need to do to be able to get to shut off the water to them. So those 2 bottom pictures there, just as an illustration, labelling is a big one. So the bottom left one there, 14 flats, clearly labelled, know exactly what you're doing. The one next to that, 6 flats, had no idea where they went, most have gone to outer space. So if they had a leak somewhere, they'd have to just shut them all down, and it would cause no end of convenience to people. And if that was labelled, they wouldn't have that problem. So that's sort of just 2 things I wanted to pull out there. So all of that can be then built into a water management plan. So what does a water management plan look like, and what needs to be included? Well, it's very property specific. So a residential property will have one type of water management plan. Industrial account will have another one. Commercial will have another one. It depends on the property. There can be generic ones, but certainly for industrial and commercial, they tend to be a bit more site specific. But for residential, where, like I say, that the majority of escape of water does occur, I've put up some sort of key headings there, just sort of what can be included. And it's all divided between proactive and reactive, really. So you have a proactive plan, and then if something goes wrong, you know exactly what you're doing and you're on it. So yeah, that's sort of where we sort of concentrate. And what you've got to remember with leaks is there's a big discovery phase before there's the failure phase, and that's what it's all about, getting in there, that discovery phase. And there's 2 types of leaks, and this is in the industry as well, water industry: background leakage and total failure. Background leakage is the worst, because that's really hard to find. That's your small drips that show 6 months later, but you can still sort of find those with some of these techniques. So just sort of go through a little bit of this. So proactive inspection, so go around a property, identify high risk areas, and then do almost like a property MOT for it as well, with a full checklist. with sort of pass, fail, advisory, or you could rag it red, amber, green, and then sort of obviously repair those based off that, keep, and then next one, anything that sort of advisory, you look at again, is that a problem? So it's like sealants fraying or something like that, and it probably needs replacing, but not quite yet. And then you can also look for common themes and that as well. And sort of water control and maintenance, water walks. I went to £1 million claim where it nearly took out the whole business. It was critical. The bit that was affected by the water was business critical to the operation of this company, and they nearly lost the whole lot. The whole thing would have shut down. And when I went there, they had no knowledge at all. I didn't think I'd find a lot, because I thought a big leak like that, they'd be sort of all over it. And on that particular survey, we opened the door to the boiler room where all the heating's contained, and there was a huge leak in there. And I said to the facilities manager, when did you last look in here? And he said, oh, I don't know. And so building water walks, something as simple as that, just walk around looking at all sort of spaces where there's water present, but people don't go very often. And also on that particular day when I was there, he didn't know how to turn it off, and it was very simple to do, and it took half an hour to turn it off. Again, that's another sort of illustration of what this is all about. And so that's sort of inspections. Leak detection, again, Andy will get into that. Training, so sort of residents put it in handbooks, show them exactly where they can shut off their flats, train all staff as well, train residents in what to look for, odours, discoloration, flaking paint, all that type of stuff. Any discoloration anywhere, this, if you've got that, report it. Have clear, and this is where the communication is, have clear lines to report, record, and then respond to those sort of issues, and put those together, and you might come up with a trend as well. So if you're getting a load of damp somewhere, it could be the soil stack isn't you've got an issue with the soil stacks. And then that's sort of the proactive side of it. And then the sort of the emergency response plan, you have sort of designated personnel. Everybody knows where the stopcocks are. They're well labelled. Residents know where their stopcock is, so they know what to do. The drain down, like was mentioned. So rather than having water go through the leak, open your taps, drain it, and put it down the sink. It doesn't go through your house then. And then sort of there's sort of clear reporting lines of that, and then sort of what to do documenting wise, like was covered by the claims team. Just have that all built into that. So that's sort of what water management planning. Got a bit of a rogues gallery here. So top left, in a loft, in a tank room on a flat roof, very exposed, no insulation at all. And this was above a lift shaft. Next one along is just above the sink, and this is a really big one. You might be able to see a pipe that's hanging at an angle. The retention clip on the wall had broken, and every time it was turned in, it was flexing like this, and it was actually leaking at the joint, and that was straight off the water mains in the cellar. That was going to be a big expense. So they've just sort of tied that to the wall and connected it onto the wall, because clips are an integral part, especially of compression fittings. Clips can be quite an important structural part of the pipe work. Next one along there, grey PVC pipe is shown. That was actually leaking as well from that top pressure valve, valve at the top there. They were all leaking. PVC pipe is a real challenge. It's good stuff, but if it's stored outside in the sun, then it goes brittle. And the water industry actually stopped using this for renewal a good few years ago now, because of that issue. The other thing with this is solvent joints, and if the wrong solvent's used, then that can attack the pipe. We've actually got 2 very large claims ongoing at the moment because of this issue, and it's looking like they're going to have to replace the whole rising main through a very tall residential block. Bottom left, any white brickwork, that's damp, unless it's brand new. There's some minerals, but on older property like this, definitely damp. There's something going on. Then the next 2 are just poor plumbing. So that's an outflow from a water appliance, just cable tied to a sink rather than actually being plumbed properly to the wall. Of course, you're going to get a problem there if that slides off. That's just going to flood everywhere. And below that was the main electric incomer for that property. And then that blue pipe on the end there, that was in a loft space. They'd cut that off with a saw, folded it over, hit it with a hammer to seal it, and it was dripping with a bucket underneath. So that those sort of things, and they think they fix it because they've got a bucket there, but that could fail any second. So yeah, that's some of the stuff I've been finding. Finally, what I thought I would just cover off is and it sort of illustrates this, where this is important. We've had a recent loss. It's a retirement complex. So if it's, and I got all these details in the loss adjusters report, and as you can see on the left there, it's retirement. It was discovered immediately. It occurred at 3:15 on the afternoon in the week. So work time, everybody was there. Main stopcock failed, so they knew what it was. But the interesting thing is it affected 1,450 square meters of floor area at an average depth of 6 inches, 150 mil. It went on for 90 minutes. So you can work out the impact of that because you can work out the volume and the flow rate. So the volume of water that went in there was 217.5 cubes, or 217,000 litres, which is equivalent to 1,673 people days. So that's what you talk over 90 minutes. Being 90 minutes, you can put a flow rate on that. So that was running at 40 litres a second, or 22 litre Coke bottles a second, just to put that in some sort of context. So what is the worst statistics? The 217,500 litres, the 40 litres a second, or the 90 minutes? Definitely the 90 minutes. It shouldn't have been 90 minutes. They should have known how to shut that down and get that sorted. And so mitigation, no water management plan there at all. If they had one, they could have identified the external control, which is there, and it's there to be used. It's not just for the water company. Easy to use as well. And by seeing that, they could see the location, the depth, the tools needed, and train that out. But more so, if they'd done water walks, they probably would have noticed a 4-inch pipe leaking, because water incomers tend to be really hidden at the back of cupboards, and they probably would have had that reported, got that repaired, and prevented the whole thing. But so that's just one thing sort of I've been trying to say. So if, like I say, if they rather than being 90 minutes, it'd been 10 minutes, rather than 217,500 litres going in, that would have been 24,000 litres. And rather than 1,450 square metres in the property being affected, it would have been 161 square metres. So it would have been far smaller, and if it had done it in 5 minutes, etc. So I thought that was quite a neat way of just trying to sort of illustrate what we can do. It's all simple stuff. Just being prepared. So at this point, I'll hand over to Andy Jones from Aqualeak.
Thanks, Paul, and good morning, everybody. My name's Andy Jones. I'm from Aqualeak, and we're a provider of leak detection and mitigation systems. And we're delighted to be been working with Zurich for some time now, and their customers. So just to give you a bit of a sense of the basically 2 ways in which leaks are detected. That's either through flow or through sensors, and flow is where you're monitoring the real-time flow of water through pipework, and then taking mitigating action if those thresholds are are exceeded. So we do that in volume and also length of continuous time. Those types of flow-based systems are very easy to be retrofitted. They just installed usually just after the stopcock on incoming main supply, and then when those parameters are exceeded, they then take the mitigating action of automatic shut-off valve. Sensor-based leak detection is where water comes into contact with a sensor probe or sensor cable. We typically see those more in sort of commercial rather than residential applications. They're much harder to retrofit unless you're at sort of refurbishment stage, but these are the 2 typical ways that we see of detecting leaks. So if we look at the next slide, I think what we wanted to do is just sort of some of the things we take into consideration. No 2 plumbing systems are the same. We tend to find, particularly in older properties where you might have seen townhouses that are split into flats or vice versa. So just a few things here to consider when we're thinking about protecting for leaks. What's the application? Is it residential? Is it commercial? That can have an impact on the type of system that you go for. The complexity of the plumbing system, and I'll come on to this in a slide shortly. How many supplies are there? We often see that there is not just a simple single water supply. There's multiple feeds branching off, and how we protect the whole property. And then also which areas you want to protect. So, for example, is there critical infrastructure in the property that water is present? So, for example, if it's a commercial setting and you've got, a computer server room, there'll be the presence of water there from the cooling units, for example. So how do you quickly detect a leak in those properties and then take the mitigating action? So if we just go on to the next slide. So this is a typical residential installation that we would see. So the installation of a valve and meter installed on the incoming main there, usually in a utility cupboard. And then, as I mentioned, detecting the real-time flow for both volume and that continuous length of time. If that can, we think those are really important, particularly the continuous length of time. What you don't want is to have a volume of water going through that pipe, and it has to be running for, say, 30 minutes before it will shut anything off. As Paul's just talked about, the quicker the action, the more you can mitigate the leak. If we go on to the next slide, please. So this is another example that we typically see in older properties and also sort of high net worth properties, where you often have a water tank. You might have a booster set to boost that water around the property. So what we see here is we typically install a meter before the booster pump and the tank. We also need that mitigating factor on the other side of the tank, so you don't just have a tank of water emptying into the property, which is still hugely damaging. So this is just a very typical example of the type of system that we see in sort of larger residential properties. Okay, if we go on to the next slide. This just gives you a case study. A large residential developer has taken the decision to install leak detection systems across all of their future apartment block developments. This is after they experienced a leak that happened on a 36th floor of the property before handover. They didn't know about it until that water had actually gone down all 36 floors and was landing in the basement. Several £1 million claim. And they've now taken the decision to uniquely specify leak detection systems on a per apartment basis. To give you a sense of some of the costs, so a system for an apartment, for example, can cost around £200 to £250 per apartment. So we're not talking about, significant investments, on a sort of per apartment basis relative to the claim cost as well. So we just go into the next slide, please. So this is more sensor-based systems. This is what we would typically see in a T-point, just a small single zone leak detection system where the water would be detected by that sensor probe, which is the little blue box on the right-hand side there, or a sensor cable, which is the coiled wire below. And then that sends that panel into alarm. If we go on to the next slide, please. So these systems are all modular, so you can have anything from one single zone, small area, right up to panels that can monitor 625 zones. So on the right-hand side there, where you've got one control, one master panel that's monitoring all those 625 zones throughout a property. But you can have them for 5, 10 zones, and then they're effectively a spider web modular approach. So you can have, as few or as many zones as you wanted, and they can all send that panel into alarm and quickly distinguish which zone has gone into alarm, so you can go and address the area quickly and address the problem. So we just go on to the next slide, please. So this is a commercial case study where one of our systems has been installed. Within 6 to 8 months, it had several alerts, including one in a toilet core above a trading floor. So you can imagine the damage and the cost and the reputational damage that would have been caused by a leak that caused the downtime of a trading floor. So the claim costs involved versus the amount that they paid for the installation of the system. The customer was incredibly happy that our systems had detected so many leaks in such a short space of time relatively, and that those leaks have been avoided. So just to go on to the benefits, I think hopefully this presentation of all the speakers today has demonstrated, the severe damage, both cost, emotional, reputational, that leaks can have. Forewarned is forearmed. So, and the most important thing is the immediacy and the speed of the response when a leak is detected. So leak detection systems are able to, quickly detect, but more importantly, quickly mitigate and alert people so that you don't have leaks that are ongoing for a long time and causing more and more damage and ultimately more and more cost. So that's where I'll finish for today, and happy to take any questions in part of the Q&A.
Perfect. Thanks, Andrew. So it's back to me, I think. So yeah, there's a few questions that have actually come in already. So I'm just going to have a quick scan. So I think the first question was when I was talking, it feels like a long time ago now, but Yeah, one of the questions was just about the value-added services. But someone said, "Is this a value-added service to customers?" So I think this is from when I was showing the Zurich Resilient Solution slides, obviously of which Escape of Water is one of our offerings. So absolutely, these are services that we can provide through yourselves, obviously. So yeah, obviously, if it's Escape of Water, you've got the right people on here. If it's anything else, shout at me. Costings, etc., will solely depend on what the service is, customer. Obviously, everything is bespoke. So, Aaron, I hope that answers your question. If you need anything else, then just reach out to me separately. Paul, Vincent, I think the next question is for you. So, just asking about the two types of leaks again. What are the two types of leaks again?
Yeah, so you get total failure and background leakage, and it's background leakage which is the challenge. So when you like taking it into the water industry, when you walk down the street and you see a big fountain, they aren't the problems, it's the background stuff that they're really trying to find, because the difficulty with background leakage is it generally goes into total failure. So finding it at that stage is, because it doesn't fix itself, it just gets worse. Wastewater leakage can be slightly different. That can just be a drip and drip and drip, but certainly on the water side of things, that's why there's sort of that distinction between background and total failure, because it's like on a journey then, if you like, if you think of it that way, to being a big issue. So if you can catch it early, that's the idea.
Perfect, thanks, Paul. So someone's asked about, is there an IoT based solution for detecting water leakage? Probably covered that now through Andrew. So yeah, obviously Aqualeak can help on that type of things. And then someone has asked here, Mr. Vincent, it's probably back for you again. What are the key parts to add into a water management plan?
So like I said, it's all about preventative is the thing. So it's that discovery stage. So it's about being water wise for your property, and to be water wise for a property, give it an MHC, as good as, it's a good analogy. So that's sort of going around and regularly on a scheduled basis, and just having a water focused maintenance regime, and having that separate from other regimes, and going in and sort of going around on a regular basis, checking high risk areas, noting them down, making sure everybody knows how to isolate, putting additional isolation points if there isn't enough, or you can't find one. That's another thing that can be done, and making sure everything is documented centrally so you don't lose that knowledge. And then tenant awareness is a big one if you've got residential, because that's where the challenge really is for this. When it comes to sort of industrial, they are very well monitored for water. I've been around every sector you can imagine in previous jobs, wherever water is used or any big discharge or trade effluent, so I can help with that. Commercial properties, again, they tend to be much more simple systems, so where there's only just really a sort of domestic need within a big warehouse, that can be sort of, so even though it can be a really large property, you go in there, the actual water network is relatively small compared to big industrial sites where they need water as part of the process, like abattoirs and things like that, which I've been around lots. So yeah, so that's so that they're more bespoke. So it's all about sort of being prepared, and everybody in that property is a stakeholder. That's the way to look at it, and you can sort of try and get everybody on message. There's you can do a lot of signage about, have you seen any issues? Have you heard any drips? Just like a poster, you'd be surprised how powerful this stuff is, and just labelling stopcocks, all that sort of low level activity, and being regular with it, having it well set out and being well executed. Because once you fix a leak, that's a lot of people seem to think, well, that's solved. But really, it's like the fourth bridge, because once you fix a leak, the pressure goes back up if it's on the water system. So therefore, it'll just find its next weakest spot. Generally, that's how it works. And it's like the fourth road bridge. You've just got to keep going. And some properties are particularly prone to it, and that's where the claims sort of analysis comes in, for whatever reason. Sometimes it can be down to pipe material or installation, pressure. So yeah, so that's sort of what's included.
Perfect, thank you. Paul, I think you've already answered the one about guidance notes as well. So I think you've replied on that already.
Yeah, we've got lots on that, yeah, so I can send that out. Yeah.
Brilliant, okay. Okay, so I'm just conscious of time, so we'll go for a couple more. What mitigation measures would you recommend for a large warehouse where goods are stored on racks, often 2 or 3 houses in high, so things like an Amazon warehouse, etc.?
So like I say, with those sort of properties, you tend to find they have quite limited water systems. So of course you get ingress, but today's all about escape of water. And so one obvious thing is don't have any water above it. Sprinkler systems are slightly different. We're not really sort of covering that today. They can be monitored. But really for warehousing, what you generally find is the systems are smaller. But really for those sort of properties, if you've got sort of valuable stock or anything like that, that's where you come into sort of like the leak detection side of things. It's well worth putting that in with alarms, remote monitoring, auto shut, all that type of thing. If there's a real sort of history in those sort of, you just go straight for that, because that's the best way to do it. Of course, do all the sort of housekeeping stuff that I've been talking about, but that's probably those sort of properties. It's straight into the sort of Andy Jones's sort of solution, if you like.
And Andy, actually, good timing. I'll pass this one over to you as well. So, how much would a retro? I don't know if we can answer this, but how much could a retrofit solution cost for a flat using the flow detection technology?
Yeah, so obviously various factors, but I mean we tend to find that for a flat or apartment, a single flow-based system is suitable, and they cost around between sort of £200 and £300. And you're protecting the whole apartment, individual apartment then. So yeah, broadly speaking, you're talking £200 to £300.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, I'll take. We'll do last two questions very quickly. How would you identify background leaks, say behind a wall? Is there a specific equipment for this?
Yeah, so you can use sort of thermo technology. So you can sort of there is technology out there where you can sort of moisture sensors on the wall, but really, like I say, go back to the meter and just do that sort of consumption check depending on what the property is. And then what you can then do is then start having isolation points once you've then sort of looked around the property to sort of look at the easy to sort of see things, like if it's going down the pan in the toilet, because all overflows have now been directed down pans. They don't go outside anymore, so that's quite a common one. And then you can then sort of look at those, discard that as an issue, and then you can then start putting in shut-off valves. But yeah, they can be quite difficult to see, but they normally will show at some point. And then and it's a lot of the claims I've been to where there has been sort of that sort of background leakage covered in, the damp and that you can see certainly wasn't. It happened over a long period of time, and somebody somewhere would have noticed that before it got to the stage where I have to then attend. And so it's just having that awareness can be quite a good thing. Peeling paint, as I say, discoloration, odor smells, that type of stuff can also be as good as doing the real sort of in-depth thing. But yeah, start at the meter, and if there is something going on, then yeah, really sort of have an intensive search within what that meter then supplies. Okay,
brilliant. And then Paul Gallagher, I think you've answered it already, but just if you want to elaborate. So someone's asked about an overflow of a bath or a basin, an EOW from the roof. Would it be classified under the AD peril? If you can just classify that.
Yeah, it can be classified as the AD peril. It's all dependent on policy terms, definitions, and philosophies of the insurer, which do vary greatly across the board. But you are correct, Oscar, it can be classed as AD also, but it is very dependent on the policy terms, definitions, and philosophies.
Okay, brilliant. I'm just conscious I'm a little bit over time, so yeah, thank you for everyone for questions. If we've missed any, obviously we'll come back to you directly and go through that as well. So yeah, Noel, back to you.
Thank you very much, Andy, and thank you to the rest of our presenters for running through that this morning. I hope everyone found the session informative and useful, and we will be sending round a follow-up email after this, so that will contain the slides and as well as the recording links. So Oscar, yes, we will be sending that through, and thank you all for joining. I hope you enjoy the rest of your days and the weekend when it arrives. Thank you very much.